And then we will start on chapter 5 stuff, which is the next chapter, which is for the next test. I did have a couple of problems that James asked me to do. The first one, this just reminds you of your due dates. We did change the homework until tonight. So Monday, 6, 17, 19, so the homework is due tonight at 11:59. Your test still closes on Wednesday. So homework is due tonight, test closes on Wednesday, and everything else was still the same. James asked me about 2 questions, and I have a lot of people, hint, that are struggling with this. This was back from section 2.2. This was a 2.2 homework. He's asking about number 2, and it was just one of the parts of number 2. He was asking about number F. It says, what percent of students had an IQ of at least 130? So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at least 130. That means 130 or more. If you have at least $130 in your pocket, that means you have $130 or more. At least $130. So that means that we're going to look at the 9, the 4, and the 2. Now, main thing is you've got to pay attention to this number, or this side. Sometimes it's frequency, and sometimes it's relative frequency, which is your percentage. In this case, it's frequency, so it's the number of people. So, because this is frequency, that just means like number of people. So the number of people that are 130 or above is going to be 9 plus 4 plus 2, which is how many?
15.
What is it? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15? All right? Now, it's not 15%. Had it looked like this, had it looked like this, and had it been 9, 4, 2, and had this said relative frequency, then my answer would have been 15%. Because relative frequency, remember when we had blue, red, and green, and we did 9, 5, and 2 as our frequency, then we turned it into relative frequency, which was decimals, fractions, and percentages. So relative frequency means percent. It could be written as a decimal, it could be written as a percentage, it could be written as whatever. So if it says relative frequency, that means it can be a percentage. Or if I would have written relative frequency and it was 0.09, 0.04, and 0.02, the answer would still be 15%. Because I would add up the decimals and turn it into a percentage. But as long as we see relative frequency, we know that our answers are either a fraction, a decimal, or a percentage, but we can turn them into a percent. But if we just see frequency, that just represents the number of people. 15 people had an IQ of at least 130. We want to know the percent. This is just the number of people. So we have to take the number of people and put it over the total. So to get our total, we're going to have to add up all those people. So to get our total, I'm going to have to add up all of those bad boys and put it underneath it. So when I go to my calculator, which I thought I had pulled up, but evidently I did not. Yeah, what we're doing for those that are coming in, I had a couple people ask questions. This is a 2.2 question. Homework is due tonight. I have 5 people that have taken the test so far. 3 Bs and 2 Cs. The average was an 83 something between the 5 people that have taken it so far. Okay, so if I'm adding up 1 plus 4 plus 12, 44, 52, 43, 29, 4, 2. I'm going to put mine in classic mode just so that you can see all my numbers. If I had it in math print, it puts all on one line, but if I put it in classic, it wraps around so that you can see all my numbers. So 200 is going to be the total. So it's going to be 5 over 200, and now I'm going to have to turn that into a percentage. So my percentage is going to be 15 over 200, and then I'm going to whoop it, which is where that 7.5% comes from. So, hint, hint, I have seen recently some people that did not pay attention to frequency versus relative frequency on a nearby test somewhere recently. Frequency is just the number of people. Relative frequency is going to be the percentage. So that was a very good question for you to ask. Now, another question that was asked, and we can't remember which homework it came from, but another question that was asked is, if I gave you a bunch of information and I told you what the median was, and I asked what is the missing number? We know to find the median, we come in from either side, and the median is found by adding the 2 middle numbers and dividing by 2. So we are working backwards for this problem. So we know that the median is when you add the 2 numbers and cut it in half. Well, we know what the median is. The median is 65.5. My 2 middle numbers are right there. So I'm going to say 60 plus X, and we're going to cut it in half. Are we good? Now, remember these 2 are dating and the huzzies downstairs? We get rid of the huzzy. How do we get rid of the huzzy? We multiply by 2. So we're going to multiply by 2 to get rid of the huzzy. We don't want her creeping in on our man. So 65.5 times 2. So that's going to give me 131 in the front equals 60 plus X. Then what am I going to do to both sides? Subtract that 60.
I have a question about
Yes.
that one. So, how did you get the median whenever you're missing a number?
The median was given to you.
Oh, okay.
So this
median
was
given.
the entire problem.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the problem. Yeah, you couldn't have found it without me telling you what the median was.
Okay, all right. And so you just added the number left to that? These
Because
2?
when you come in from either side, because the way that you get the median is you come in from either side, and if you have 2 numbers in the middle, you add those 2 numbers and divide by 2. Because your median, remember, is if you're drunk,
Yep.
is the middle of the 2 middle numbers.
Yep.
Good? So those were the first 2 questions that were asked of me. Now, there were some 4.2 questions that some of y'all were like, holy crap, I need some help. So I'm going to go to the 4.2, and then if I need to look at anything else, we'll look at some other stuff. So I'm going to pull up my 4.2, which mine are going to be just like yours, just different problems. So, let's see which ones. Number 1 was easy. I think number 2 was one of those that is tough. So I'm in 4.2. We're going to look at number 2. It had A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So this is 4.2, number 2. Number 2.
That's good.
My bad. That one was easy. 4.2. Number 2. And I'll pull it over to make it bigger, so as we go, y'all can work it out with me. Plus, I'll have it in our notes so that you can go back and look at it for those of you who haven't gotten this far. So this is 4.2, number 2. So the first thing says, I want to, and it says by hand, I never make you do anything by hand, draw a scatter diagram. So it's telling us what our X is and it's telling us what our Y is. So we're going to do stat edit. Our X is going to be our L1 and our L2 is going to be our Y. So I'm going to go to my calculator. I'm going to do stat edit, go to the top, clear, enter. Go to the top, clear, enter. 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7. 1, 3, 6, 9, and 11. And then all I want to do is I want to see a scatter diagram. So I'm going to do zoom 9. Oops, I didn't do zoom 9, I did zoom enter. Zoom 9. Now, I'm not sure if it doesn't look exactly right, what I can do is go to my window. Now, I have, this one is 0 to 10, 0 to 10, 0 to 20, and 0 to 10. So I'm going to try to do, since the majority of them are 0 to 10 on the x-axis, and now this one's 0 to 10, this one's 0 to 20, and this one's 0 to 20. So I've got 2 of these. So I'm going to try a 0 to 10 and a 0 to 20. Let me look at what it looks like. Just let me go zoom 9 again to see if there's exactly one that looks like it. Do y'all see one that looks like it?
A.
I think it's A. Are y'all with me? Now, I'm going to go and double check that it's A, especially if this was a test question. I think it's A, but I'm going to double check my window. So, I go to my window button. My x-axis is from 0 to 10, counting by ones. So it goes from 0 to 10, and I'm counting by ones. My y goes from 0 to what, and what am I counting by? 0 to 20, and what am I counting by? What is each one of those tick marks?
2.
Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? It's going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Y'all with me? So I'm going to be 0 to 20, and I'm counting by 2s. So I'm just triple checking to make sure. So this just makes sure. So now when I do graph, it just changed my axis just enough so that I know for certain that this means I'm going from 0 to 10 and I'm counting by ones. And the other one means I'm going from 0 to 20 and I'm counting by 2s. And it looks even more like A. So without a shadow of a doubt, and I probably wouldn't do that if it wasn't a test question, but I'm just double checking. So A is done. Now, for B, and some of you may have figured this out back from algebra. Let's pull this one over. I didn't do one like this, but you should know enough to remember this back from algebra. Some of you may or may not. It says find the equation of the line containing the points 2, 1, and 7, 11. Do we remember doing this? That old school. This is in the form of y equals mx plus b. They first want you to find the m, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This is your x of the first point, this is your y of the first point. This is your x of the second point, this is your y of the second point. Remember that? So, what is my y2? What is my y1? What is my x2? What is my x1? Top number is, bottom number is, my slope is, okay? Then they want you to use the point slope form.
2.
Yeah, it was a 2. My bad. 2. They want you to use the point slope form, which says y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This is good old algebra 1, algebra 2. Y minus, what is your y1? What is your slope? X minus, what's your x1? 2. And now they want you to make it pretty. They want you to put it in y equals mx plus b form. So they want you to distribute and they want you to rearrange so that y is by itself. So when we distribute, what does the backside give us? Whoop whoop. What does that give us? 2x minus 4. So y minus 1 equals 2x minus 4. What do I need to do now to get y by itself?
Add 1.
So y equals 2x minus 3. This was if you didn't have a calculator and you had to do it by hand and just randomly pick 2 points. They wanted you to find the slope, plug the slope into, this is not on the test. Praise Jesus. Not on the test. Let me even put that in red. Whoop whoop. Not on the test. So if you can just get through the homework. Okay? So when we plug it in, we're going to say a 2 there, and we're going to have to put a negative 3 there because they already have the plus. We good? So I'm going to put a 2 and a negative 3. I'm going to put a 2 there and a negative 3 there. And in your computer, a negative and a subtraction are the same thing. Now, it says graph the line found in part B. So, when we go to my calculator, we're going to go to y equals, and we're going to graph the line that we just did, which was 2x plus a negative 3. So, 2x plus a negative 3. So, I'm going to come over just to show you what I'm doing. So, for part C, I plug that equation into y equals, and then I hit the graph button. So what your calculator is doing is it's taking the points that you plugged in from L1 and L2, and it's taking your line that you just plugged in from L1. So if I come back over, now we have to pick which one it matches. Copy, wrong one, and paste. Again, pay attention. These go to 10, this one goes to 20. These go to 10, this goes to 20. And I have several of you that are beating yourself up on the test going, I thought I knew what I was doing. It's little things like that that are going to get you. All right, so I have 4 of the dots on the line and 1 that's above the line. It only looks like it's gonna be that one. Go with me. If I want to triple check, I can go in and I can go to window, 0 to 10, count by 1, 0 to 20, count by 2. I still have it left over. I'll pull it just to show you that it's the same as what it is in A. There's going to be my answer for C. Cool? Now, it says by hand, again, we don't do what we did that last one, sort of by hand. By hand, determine the least squares regression line. Now, we did that part in class. How do we do that part? Second calc, number 4, linear regression. Okay? So, I'm going to go to my calculator. First, I'm going to flip this over so y'all can have everything step by step. I'm going to pull this over, copy, pull down, paste. Now, I already have my data in there. Remember, we already have our data in there. We didn't do anything different. So we're going to do stat, calc, just so that you can see what I'm doing. And then enter. Oops, hit the wrong one. Stat, calc, number 4. Oh, I haven't got my diagnostic on. And remember, y'all got to do that fixed calc when you walk in there and take the test, or you won't see what you need to see, which is what I have. Stat, calc, linear regression. There we go. Now, all they need is the A and the B. They need the A there, and they need the B there. So I'm going to type that in however many places they want, and I'm going to type that in however many places they want. So in the first little spot and in the second little spot, my little spots aren't big enough. In that little spot and in that little spot. So in my first spot, it says to 3 places. So it's going to be 1.9, what? 77. The Y is already there, the X is already there, the plus is already there. What am I going to put in the other spot? Negative 2.698. So that's going to be in the first box. This is going to be in the second box. We good? (1977) negative 2698. Negative 2698. Was that right? Graph the least squares regression line. So, right now in our y equals is what we did by hand. We now need to suck over that y equals ax plus b that the calculator just did. So I'm going to clear out that. Do we remember how to suck over? Bars, stats, over to EQ, and enter. Let me suck that, let me pull this over right here. Let me pull this over. Copy. This way you'll have every possible step to go back and look at. And then I'm going to pull this over. Copy. Paste. Paste. And then I did bars down to number 5, which was stats. Then I went over to EQ, and then I did regression equation. I think that was it. That sucks it over. And then what am I going to do to look at it? just graph. So it took out the one that I did y equals mx plus b, and it put in the one that the graphing calculator did. So then I hit graph. This is the copy and paste. This is what sucks it over. That's what made me do that. So now I've got to figure out which one looks the closest. I would say B. I would say it matches this one. B. Okay. All right. Oops, wrong button. Copy. Paste. This one's not as bad as it looks. Let me come back up here. Let me come right here. I can steal it from right here. Copy and paste. Compute the squared residuals on your formula sheet, and we even talked about this last time, what a residual was. I even have it right here on your formula sheet. Residual. Copy and paste. So residual is the observed value minus the predicted value. So the observed value, if I plug this in, this was my original data. If I plug this in, this is what they said was going to happen. This is actually what did happen. I got this from way up here in the original problem. All the way back 45 minutes ago, up here. This is my observed data. When you have a 2, you get out a 1. When you have a 3, you get out a 3. When you have a 4, you get out a 6. This is my observed data. Now, I want to predict what's going to happen when I use the equation from part B. Here was my equation from part B, 2x plus a negative 3. So where do I have to go to predict? Second table. But before I can use second table, I need to have part B's equation. And part B's equation was y equals 2x plus a negative 3. So I've got to go into my calculator to y equals, take that one out, and put in 2x plus a negative 3. Because that's what I need to be using to predict. So when, oops, wrong button. So when I go into my table, what should I be plugging in for my x's? 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7. Let me send it back. Oh, there we go. So this is my observed. That's my given data. This is my predicted. So to get my residual, what do I need to do to those two numbers? I need to subtract them. And that one wasn't supposed to be in there. So what is 1 minus 1? 3 minus 3. 6 minus 5. 9 minus 9. 11 minus 11. Now, up here it says the sum. What does that mean I need to do? Of the squared. What do I need to do to each one of those answers? I need to square them and I need to add them up. So if I square each one of those, what's the square of 0? What's the square of 1? And add those up, there's my answer. So they're making you predict a bunch of things and then sum them and add them up. So the answer to that one is going to be 1. my little problem. We're almost done with this one. Now they want us to compute the sum of the squared residuals of the other equation. So where are we going to have to go to get the other equation? Go to the stat